run. So to help us make sense of all of this, we are joined by Dr. Pete Odera, who is a veteran singer and a songwriter, a husband for 22 years.
22.
Absolutely. And a father.
One wife.
And a
Wow.
father. Welcome, sir. So, 22 years, one wife. Emmanuel,
22
Lemesley.
years,
Yeah, wife.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's dive right into it, Dr. Pete. Is love all it takes, man? Is love enough?
Yes.
Okay, well, listen, you know, people, for the last 16 of those 22 years, I've been counseling people as they prepare to get married, after marriage, and so on. And I asked them some basic questions. The first thing, when they come into my office, I ask them, why do you want to get married? And almost always, you know, I heard what you're talking a little bit about. Everybody says, you know, I feel it's time.
Yes.
You know,
It's so
for
wrong.
yeah. Some people come in and say it's time. Other guys come in and they say, I love him or I love her. Very few people tell me, man, I can't stay like this. Damu ni moto.
Yes.
Yeah, I think maybe in my 16 years experience, maybe only 2 people, and both of them were women, were honest enough to say, I can't just stay like that. And then, and some people are very spiritual, like our sister was saying a little earlier. They come and they say, I've been praying, and I feel she's the one. And so people have various reasons. Some people are pressured into it and so on. But what I always say is that love is not enough. I tell them love is not enough. Emotional, oh, he makes me feel, oh, when I see him and when I see her, and you know the guys will not say this, but the ladies will say, when I see him, I feel weak.
Yeah.
I say, okay.
Feel weak around the knees.
Just wait until 5 years later, let's see if he still
There's
makes
no
you
weakness
weak.
you'll be feeling.
You know, so I always say that number one, emotions are not enough. So even though I think it's important, I know that emotions are not enough. The second thing I say is that shared interests are not enough. And the reason I say that is that when I got married, we had some common interests and some things that I thought were a certain way. 10 years later, changed. There's one thing, a really funny thing happened one day. When I first met my wife, she said she didn't like tuber roses. You know, like giving this, I'm a flowers and romance guy.
Yes.
She didn't like tuber roses. And she said that 10 years later, one day I came home and I found tuber roses. I said, somebody's given her flowers who doesn't know her. She said, no, I changed my mind. I like them these days.
So like, when did that happen?
Yeah, so shared interests change. People change. And after 10 years, if she doesn't change, then maybe iko kitu mbaya. And then I say, finally, you know, sex is not enough. I say sexual intimacy, though important to a marriage, is not enough. Okay, and these are the main
Sex,
reasons
love.
that people, sex is not enough because we know that there are people who have intimacy that is on fire with fireworks, but they still cheat.
Yes.
And so you ask, why? Why? Fundamentals of those things. These are some of the, and I suppose that we have until 10. We're going to get into, going to get into some of the things. So
Absolutely. Just a follow-up question, because you've said you've been counseling for many years
Right.
now. Can you, as a counselor, indicate from the conversations you're having with the would-be couples
Right.
whether they are going to enjoy longevity or it's going to be short-lived from the things they are leaning towards?
I have been surprised. I have been surprised. Sometimes the people who I thought would make it hit the rocks. Around these days, by year 3, the turbulence now starts. But generally about 5 years, and you know, people talk about the 5-year itch. At about 3 to 5 years, stuff starts to happen. And so I've been surprised. Some of the people who I thought were going to have it smooth sailing don't, because stuff happens. You know, if you lose a parent or lose a job, some of those things affect the way you
used to be.
Or the way you see life, you know, and then sometimes you get married to somebody and they had, you know, you're 27, but something that happened to them when they were 7 was not, they didn't even know that this thing had repercussions. So now they're 37 and coming to terms with their mortality. The hair is not where it used to be. Stuff is not where it used to be, you know, and so she was a certain way when she was 27. Now she's had a couple of children. stuff isn't where it used to be. There's more stuff somewhere where where it never used to be, and so you say, okay, well, you know what, and then suddenly insecurities, trauma, issues of when they were 7 years old still affect people 30 years later. So I've been surprised. I've been surprised. I've been pleasantly surprised with other people who I said, hey, these ones don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
And they prove you wrong.
And they absolutely, I'm very proud. Listen, whichever way, I'm still proud of the people I lead, the people I walk with, because I'm at a place now where I'm saying to the people who come to me that, you see, if you're coming to marriage to get definition, that mimi ni mtu. I'm somebody because now I'm married. You know, I got a ring. He put a ring on it.
Yeah.
That gives you some kind of significance in life. I say that's going to be a challenge. We have to find significance before we jump into the marriage ring.
Pete, you said, just to take you back,
Sure.
love is not enough.
It's not enough.
Sex enough. What is enough?
That's a very...
yeah,
we have until 10. We're going to
I
talk
was
about
very
it.
curious. You said it's not enough. So what would be enough?
I have... Do you have time?
Yes.
I got 8 things.
Tell us.
I got 8 things, and maybe we'll discuss them in
as we
Yes.
go along.
as we go along. So the first thing I say is in fact, because we're talking about the stuff that affects longevity, you have to speak the same or similar money language. So money. We need to talk about sexual intimacy, because wrong foundation or even orientation can bring problems. I got stories for you.
Yes.
Ability to communicate properly, you know, just to discuss soberly and discuss. So communication is important. Those are the first 3 things that I'll say. If you're going to fight, if couples are going to fight, they're going to fight about money.
Yes.
They're going to fight about sex, and they're going to fight about communication. But you didn't tell me. How common is that? Hukusema, you know.
That's
so
very common.
and then we find inability to resolve conflict. So one of the key things that will preserve a marriage is conflict resolution skills, because 2 people with completely different backgrounds, Barbara, what you're basically doing is you're inviting somebody else's madness into your madness. So I'm mad in this way, but you don't know who I am. You just like what you see. So the ability for us to resolve conflicts. I found that some people are just not friends after they get married. They were never friends.
To start with.
They felt the heat. I'm feeling your vibe. I'm feeling your vibe. And it was vibe for 2.5 years. Afterwards, after the 2.5 year vibe ends, say, who is this person?
Yeah.
So there was a poor bond between that doesn't go beyond romance. Another big one, I've got stories for this one, career choices. You know, are you making the right career choice? So there you are, you get posted to X place that puts you away from your person. They're paying you 4 times, 5 times more than you ever. And so, you say, praise the Lord, there's been an open door. What a breakthrough. Yay.
But not a breakthrough in your marriage.
And then you're transferred, and suddenly you don't have a companion. And I can tell you stories about that one choice that made the marriage go downhill. And then the one that we Kenyans like to blame, it is your sister that has broken my marriage. Boundaries, forming boundaries between friends and family.
Yes.
And then lastly, number 8 for me is we have a generation now that places no value whatsoever on marriage. No value whatsoever. So do we value and cherish marriage? All those things will be challenged.
We'll be going through them one by one, so that you just break it
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful.
properly.
I'm so glad.
Yeah,
Yes.
man. But before we go there, I have a question, because
Sure.
I know many people around me. Many people stay together before getting married.
Right.
If you're doing okay,
Yeah.
Quote
in
unquote.
quotes, when you're not married,
Yeah.
do you think that would like be an indicator that when now you're married, things are just going to continue as is? Like, is it a litmus test for, hey, this one is okay
Like
the way it
test
is.
driving.
When we marry, I'm sure it's going to just continue the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, because some people just say, I'm not gonna risk with this person until I really know them, and that's actually question number 8. How do we value marriage? What is marriage? To go before your friends and family and God and make a vow before those people and say, I'm going to stick with you whatsoever, is very different from taking your toothbrush.
The towel.
Yeah, your toothbrush. Hey, some people don't take a towel.
They're like,
I'll buy a toothbrush on my way.
Yeah.
things can go haywire.
Yeah. The truth is, prolonged periods of staying together in sexual intimacy, and you say, oh my goodness, it was fireworks last weekend. Yeah, okay, yeah. Beyond that, some people stay together because this is my friend who I want to stay with, I want to spend this time with. The dynamic, that thing changes when you say, I do, before friends, family, and God. I think it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So folk have to come to that place. And I think, a lot of people then ask, so, where does God feature in this story? Where do family feature in this story? Where do my friends feature in this story? I hope that we can find that path that is so treacherous for this present generation. We're having some challenges. And I think I'll be a little bit candid here on this thing. I mean, I just turned 50.
Oh,
yeah, I
you're
turned
good for
50.
50?
This is what people say.
Where is that?
I need to look good at 50. I really need to look good.
Well, there, congratulations right there.
Yeah, man.
Look at that. So
man,
my
you
wife.
like- you didn't
Na
even
Emmanuel,
know-
look at 30,
You
no,
didn't
na
know
kind
I'm
of.
49, right?
Right? No.
Yeah, right. You wish.
There's no way. My wife also just turned 50 this last month. And so it's been an interesting journey. I will tell you that, have we always agreed? No. Have we disagreed? Very often. But I'll tell you something. You asked a very important question. One of the indicators, and maybe we can do this before we take a break, is one of the indicators of...
Dr. Peter Odera, hold that thought.
Okay.
So we go on a break. When we come back,
Yeah.
you break it down nice and gently.
Right.
Together with the
Yes,
8 ones,
yes,
because we'll
yes.
have
No
more
problem.
time.
This
Yeah.
is 94.4 Spice FM, and we are the adults in the room. We're gonna be back. Some Aerosmith coming up. This one is gonna be a banger. And guess what? We are here with Dr. Pete all the way till 10 o'clock. This one is a treat. 8:20.
You're in
It's
such a
actually
romantic mood
20,
today.
20, yeah, man. You're feeling
The
it, Barbara.
songs,
Man.
hey.
The songs are, they're just going deep. And we're going to be playing more of such music, so you don't need to go anywhere. Aerosmith is one of my favorites, as you can hear. You've heard it from Barbara, and she's actually totally right. We are the adults in the room. This is 94.4 Spice FM, 96.0 in Nakuru. Thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. Remember, the hashtag is adults in the room.
That is absolutely right. We always love to hear from you. If you're on Twitter, the hashtag remains the same as Emmanuel has said, adults in the room, and the handle is at Spice FM. We are not only on Twitter, we are also on Instagram and Facebook.
What are you hearing on Facebook, girl?
British J said he's tuned in from Kiambu. Laban Tanu, he's tuned in from Nandi. And Rex Lazru, he's tuned in from Nairobi. While, Nelson, he says he's from a holiday. And hey, he's tuned in. Mustard said tuned in from Nyeri. Thank you, everyone who's plugged in. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We are discussing factors that affect longevity of marriage. And our special guest is Dr. Pete Odera.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, Karibu Sana, Peter. Are you hearing anything on Twitter, brother?
Yes, tons. Alicia Otiato says, how are you? Langata is tuned in. Thank you, Alicia. It's always a pleasure. Monica Gray says, hi, I'm tuned in from Kisumu. Ranks, loving the show, educating too. There's a gentleman here, Wiseman, says, wow, I love that song and I love the show. And Nora, nimepokea salamu. Nora is a good friend of mine. She needs to call me. Petition, and I lost her number. Nora, call me, and thank you so much. We are the adults in the room, and thank you for choosing 94.4 Spice FM. We are joined today by a man I revere and respect so much, Mr. Pete Odera. I was just telling him over the break that he reminds me of yet another man who we won't delve into it. But he's joining us today to talk about factors that affect longevity of marriages. And if you're joining us, you've missed a tiny bit, but the bigger chunk is yet to be downloaded. So you're saying 8 things, sir.
I was saying 8 things, but I really just have to say, Emmanuel,
Yes.
in 1998, that's a year after we got married, that August, the birthday Aerosmith gave me was this song.
Oh.
1998, they had a number 1 song. This song, Don't Wanna Miss a Thing,
Yes.
was number 1. But the time I got married, it was, and if you don't play it today, I'll forgive you. It was, Kiss from a
Give a
Rose.
Rose.
Yeah.
Seal.
Uh-huh.
That was one of our songs.
Oh, right.
I can give you a list, but I know we're here to
Let's
talk
start-
about
yeah, let's,
the,
let's
the things
start
that
with
affect things that affect longevity of marriage.
Yeah, man, and you had a list of 8, and we just want to, get that knowledge from you, my good sir. So you said the first
Number
one,
one reason
yes.
people fight will be money. If you have a problem with money before you got married, you will have a big problem with money after you get married. It is the number one reason people fight. People kill each other because of money. If you have bad financial skills, there's no magic wand that you're going to wave over it. That when I marry this guy, oh, he's got a lot of money, and then now suddenly it's going to be okay. It's not. Because his way of managing money and your way of managing money have to find congruence somewhere. And you have to find a middle ground. Now, some people have different ideas about this thing, but to me, it's so critical. In fact, I'll say, the dating, you asked me a question again, Emmanuel, so I was trying to listen.
Yeah, about the staying
Cohabiting.
together.
What
and
is
then you get married.
what is the number one indicator on how or the longevity of the marriage? And we can come to this a little later. It's the ability of the couple to be able to resolve conflict. So conflict resolution is a critical skill that we have to get. But back to money, if you don't know how to manage money, you're going to have problems. You're going to have serious problems. And so some people's style is, okay, Sarah, whatever will be, will be. If it comes, we have it, yay. Some other people, their ways, hey, we have it, get what you can what you get, and that's how some people are.
Yeah.
And so they'll be tight-fisted about, everything.
Stingy.
So there you are. Many of our young women are walking around saying, I need a guy who will. And they have this big list. But ain't none of that stuff that they're asking for. They can't even do it for themselves at the beginning.
True.
So you're already setting yourself up for a train wreck. Did I say train wreck?
Yeah,
Yes.
you did.
Train wreck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then you have all these questions for the guy. And then the flip is the same. Here's this guy who's used to living his, your two people used to living an independent life from each other. And then suddenly you're supposed to blissfully come together by magic. It ain't going to happen. You need to talk about money.
Is it worse if it's the guy who has a money problem? Like, could it work if it's the lady? The lady is the guy is okay with money,
Right.
And then the lady is maybe not so good.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking, could it work if the guy is the one who has the lady is the one who has the money problem?
Right.
So the marriage will work, and this is my theory, and this is the question that I'm asking.
I hope
The
you know
marriage
you're
will
being
work
very
because
unfair.
the guy can, he can handle he can't handle the
Because
money.
we can.
So it's a problem if the guy can't handle the money more.
Listen, it's a problem. This is a problem because there's a measure of financial transparency that needs to come into the marriage space. Have you ever seen those on TV? The cops are saying, this is a most wanted gangster and we shot him. We've been looking for him for 2.5 years. He's been in hiding. And then they ask the wife, "Bwana wangu sikujua, aliniambia tu ni businessman." There was a problem. She knew not the source of his finance. And this is important. We have to know because what you do with your money reveals a lot about your character. Not what you earn, what you do with it. Because you can be You can be balling like you guys up in here. You know, you guys, I look at your studio, you guys are balling. You can be balling. But you're poor at managing, and so you're living beyond your means. That is going to be a serious problem. So I'd say the problem usually isn't money. The problem is living within your means. Now, somebody hearing me will say, well, Pete, you don't understand how people live in this naive, how people live in this Kenya of ours of today. The truth is this, there are people earning money who can, you know that, what's that thing that's happening this week? There's a chopper getaway.
Yeah,
Valentine.
That's what that thing
There are
happening this
some
week.
guys. There are some guys who can just do these things. Just for I will do it, no problem. And you write the check
just
and they're
swipe.
done. Swipe and it's done. There are people who can do it. The issue isn't can we do it or not. Is that the center? Is this going to be a source of conflict? So money, whether you don't have it, you have too little or too much, can be a source. So understanding your money management style and finding good money management styles is going to be important. So I hear the question forming, Emmanuel. What if she earns more than you?
They have a problem.
He has a problem?
No,
He
I
says
don't
we
know.
behave
Barbara is
badly.
lying.
He says
Why is Barbara lying?
He says women, or he thinks that
No.
some women behave badly
Right.
towards men
I
Right.
said that.
in a previous
Barbara,
show.
hey, Eric.
We can remove that clip.
But go ahead, Pete.
Well, listen, the reality in our present world is that if you look at the demographic coming from Dr. Eda Gashukia's program, Educate the Girl Child has gone ahead. Almost all middle management places in advertising companies and media, you'll find it's populated with women. The thing has worked. And so what we're having now is the boomerang, because now it seems like the boy child aliwachwa nyuma. That's not entirely true. But here's the reality. If you live in a city like Nairobi with a rate of inflation and things the way they are, can you realistically expect that you will find the guy who you're looking for with half a meter income? We know them. They can fit in this room.
True.
Yeah. So you want to he's already married.
Yes. He's taken.
He's taken. So what are you going to do? You're going to find a compromise to say, babe, these are the responsibilities that we will share. We'll share these responsibilities. That's a reality that we're just going to have to face in Kenya. Now, I say that having walked the space where my wife earned more than me at some point. And then she was, at some point, she becomes the sole breadwinner. And then at some point, the roles changed. And then I became the sole breadwinner. These roles changed. And part of that is understanding that marriage is a journey. If you're together with somebody and you say, man, for life, I'm your ride or die for life. I'm with you. I'm holding hands with you when you're burying your parents. I'm with you. Then you're going to have to learn how to bear with each other through little and through much, because that's not all there is to marriage. Number 2 reasons people fight.
Eric, do you have a question on money first?
No, I think if I hear you correctly, you're just saying that money reveals character.
Money reveals character.
So more than looking at the tax index or the index at which
Yes.
somebody is earning,
Yeah.
you want to look at who they've become or they are from
Yeah.
what they earn
Yeah.
or what they don't earn.
Yeah.
That
And
big
by the
thing,
way,
yeah.
there's easy ways of telling this, both ways.
Yeah.
So the sister who wants to find a brother, when you go out on a date, how does he treat the cleaner or the waiter?
Yeah.
Does that apply for a woman? Because I once went on a date with
Yeah,
a
yeah,
woman
yeah.
who was very
It-
rude to the waiter.
It totally applies.
Cheki, nilisema soda baridi utanikasirisha wewe.
Hey, that's a very rude person.
So we ended
I've
that
seen it with my
relationship.
eyes. Nimeona na macho.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another
Cheki.
day.
Cheki, nimeambia huyu msichana nini? Nimemwambia nini? Cheki,
So-
ulikuwa umemwomba warm. Una side na yeye. So that relationship
Even
ended.
me, I'm happy you left that
Sasa
girl.
ninaongelesha huyu mwanamke, wewe una side na waiter. Okay, sawa. Pole. So I dropped her home and that relationship ended.
You did yourself a good favor, Eric.
You did. And I'll tell you why. Because that waiter is you when you did something wrong.
Yes.
Without the benefit of the restaurant,
that's
it's just you and them and the neighbors who will be listening to your fight.
When you tell that, Eric is in shock. He doesn't love contentious women.
No, you're right, actually, Pete, because there's a neighbor of mine who was kicked out because they used to entertain us at around 3:22 a.m. So the lady would start, "No, I'll show you," and the guy's like, "Show me." "The girl start."
So she
Start.
she probably showed a few waiters.
So I'm like, these must have started from the restaurant.
These are the jealous.
So that that's really deep. man.
Yeah.
Like that's you eventually.
Yeah,
Right.
That's you eventually. So how? This is why I like it. If the girl likes you when you, and you know, I've seen a lot of girls on social media. They really get on the guys because she loved me when she should love me when I have nothing.
Yeah.
There's some depth in that thing because how I really am when I don't have anything is how I am. Everything else, because what is money? Money is an amplifier. If you are stupid and nasty when you're broke, you'll be super stupid and super nasty when you get color.
And arrogant.
Yeah. So anytime you see an arrogant rich person, that person didn't become arrogant when they got rich. They were arrogant anyway.
Before.
So money reveals character. It's an amplifier.
Alrighty, Barbara, you have a question? We got number 2.
We can go to number 2.
Number 2, sexual intimacy. The number 2 reason people don't stay together, affects the longevity, is sex. And I'll say, when people come to my office, it's either too little, too much, and hardly anything in between.
That's dangerous.
The guys, if you ask guys in terms of percentages, they ask, do you have enough sex? More often than not, the answer will be no. If you ask the girls, do you have, most of the girls will say, hey, by the way, it's more than enough. More than enough. But I'm finding a new generation of super adventurous girls who now I'm saying, okay, what is that? Because some of that is wrong foundation. Okay, so let me be clear about this. When we've grown up in what I call postmodern Africa, sort of urban, something. But many of us grew up, I went to school in Kisii, I went to school in Kakamega, and then we lived in Nairobi. So most of my time I grew up in this rural area. And so the understanding of sex and sexuality has been taboo for the longest time. So most guys stumbled on sex. The sex education, and you'll hear me listen to a guy tell, did your dad ever talk to you about sex? Most guys will tell you no. The people who say my dad talked to me about it are in the small minority. I didn't just say minority, small minority. So where do most of us guys learn about sex and sexuality? From the other, you're in Form 1 and you're just discovering. The Form 4s tell you all these exaggerated stories about what they did during the holidays to that girl who was somewhere and did. So that's the story. And so in your 13-year-old mind, 14-year-old mind, you conjure up these pictures of a screaming girl who's calling your name so that the neighbors can hear and what have you.
There's one who told me 18 hours, Jama. He was from Coast.
And
He had done allegedly, yeah. Such
Yeah.
stories.
Kampala, Nairobi travel.
but the reality is, let's ask ourselves a question.
Yes.
What does a 16, 17-year-old really know about making love? So the picture many of us guys grew up with is a fantasy, which takes us now to the magazines and the porn sites and what have you. And so let me help the girl. You cannot compete with a man's fantasy. There is no way. Flip that thing around. What is the conversation that most women have about sex? As soon as the girl is budding, the first bit of advice she's told, don't play with boys.
Yes.
That's it. Now, the advantage is because women menstruate, they have a little more opportunity to be talked to about their sexuality because of what? Of fear. You can get pregnant. So, women's approach to sex talk is fear. But God made this thing. Let me just be real. This thing was not designed by men. Men didn't wake up and then say, okay. Women didn't design it. This was the way we were created, is to find pleasure in each other. So if we get it wrong, because of wrong foundation, because we're approaching it with fear, you go to the, what's that thing that women do called bridal showers.
Yes.
Endure the pain. It's painful. So the girls come in with this fear and, oh my God, this is going to be painful. I need to endure. So you have this endurance. Yeah, he's your husband. And so there's a wrong space there. Please remember, this guy, he's now 27. Nobody has had any conversation with him except his 17-year-old senior in school. So he took advice from a 17-year-old when he was 14. That was all. And then after that, his boys tell him, you're the guy. Hey, fist bump. So I think wrong orientation and foundations of sexual intimacy. Sex is supposed to be enjoyed by both partners. It's supposed to be sacred. But now we have this whole story, and then we're introducing now third party and others, open relationships. I will guarantee, you really want to mess your marriage up? Start telling stories about it. You know, post it on Facebook or social media, or talk to somebody who you don't trust about it. I think that sexual intimacy is supposed to be a private affair. And I think in my counseling and in talking with people, what I found is that the more people are involved with this thing, whether it's virtually or actually, the trickier it gets. So it becomes a problem.
In-laws.
Social media.
Yes,
So
we call
if-
ourselves social media in-laws in your marriage.
Like with the people who you've counseled who have a problem with,
Yeah.
like it's too much or it's too little. Like,
Yeah.
What advice do you give? Like meet in the middle. Like how do you solve such a problem?
Right. Some people are genuinely incompatible sexually. And so I recommend therapy. Say what? I recommend therapy. It's still very expensive in Kenya.
Yes.
It's still very expensive, but I recommend therapy. Because sometimes the main sexual organ is not below the waist. The main sexual organ is above the neck.
Yes.
And if we can get the mind right in the right space so that we have the right approach towards sex. And people come to me and say, what do you know about sex? You know, you're so goody two-shoes about this thing. Bro, I've been married for 22 years. So I think I can speak with some kind of, just out of experience, that because I've been in counseling over 16 years, because I've had 22 years of, at the very least, how not to do marriage. You learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
I think it's important for us to get this thing right. So I think some people will find incompatibility. You can get therapy for that. But the first place that starts with is in demystifying the sexual experience. What does it actually mean to have a sexual encounter with somebody? Many people come from a space of fear, taboo. So I really feel that part of our societal structure that broke down leaves many of our, especially young men, vulnerable to wrong ideas and wrong foundations of marriage. So I'd say some of our older men need to hold the hands of our younger men and begin to mentor guys. Forget about sexuality, just plain straight up mentoring. This is how you tie a tie. This is why you should use deodorant. Young man, you're interested in this girl. Why? This is what happens when you get involved with a young lady. Or you're thinking about marriage. Have you talked about how is your sex life? Really having the kind of people that you can have honest sexual conversation with without the pressure of having the boys around the beer and having to be the chest thumpers and saying, hey, I perform this way, I perform this way. It doesn't really matter. And we know it's all exaggeration because we seen the way she looks at you and she...
Right. Nigga, you did nothing.
So Eric, do you have a follow-up of that?
No, it's very interesting. I'm learning quite a bit, Pete. But one of the things you've said, which I think is very, very important, is to just have the conversation around sex boldly and as openly as one can.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of insistence on performance, especially amongst boys.
Yeah.
And you're right about how we get peer pressure from high school and even into colleges. So somebody says, hey, mazee, sikujua naweza last hivyo. Yani buda nilianza 7, kuangalia time ni midnight. Na sijachoka. So so that kujipuliza. So I often say here, Pete, that to know the road ahead, it's important to us those coming back.
Yeah.
So just to echo your sentiments that a lot of people who've gone ahead of us need to spare
Yeah,
some
yeah.
time.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's it's incalculable the amount
Yeah.
of pleasure I have
Yeah.
to have someone like you come share.
Yeah.
Because this is wealth of 22 years.
Yo, yo,
True,
yo.
yeah.
Yes, and then a lot of us also have not grown up in homes with fathers.
Yes.
Most of these
Absolutely.
fathers, we see them on TV.
Yeah.
We are Kona Baba. Like, I was hanging out with a bunch of my friends
Wow.
about 3 weeks ago. We were 4 guys. Then all of a sudden, one of them asked, you say, guys, do you realize that all of us have issues with our dads? One of them has not spoken to the dad in like
Wow.
30 years. Another one, he has never seen the dad. There's another one here who
What?
has never seen the dad.
Right.
So I feel like even more than people reporting back as mentors, if we can have a conversation
Right.
around also fathers being present and
Absolutely.
what fatherhood looks like.
That's a show
Yes.
on its own.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
But how do you? Oh, sorry, Barbara. How do you find the mentor? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm sick, I remember there was once a guy I wanted Eric to mentor. Eric was saying, like you were. I don't know how you handled that one.
I was in church and this guy was observing me many Sundays. So one time he walks up to me and says, could you be my mentor? And I was
Yeah.
freaked out. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
How do
I
you
don't know
find
if
them?
I know
Yeah.
enough to mentor you. So how would you recommend somebody finds a mentor?
I think, okay, here's the thing. What are your personal values? What are your values? Because your mentor has to at least share your values or have values that you admire. Number 2 is certainly goals. What are your goals in life? So your mentor has to be in a space that you want to go to. Number 3, is this mentor accessible? Because I can say, the late Kofi Annan was my mentor, but I never spoke with him.
Yes.
Now, I think there's a way in which the values, goals, and aspirations of this particular person can match. But until somebody actually is in relationship with you, you can't really call them a mentor. I think you can call somebody a role model and not a mentor. So I think those 3 things to me are fundamental at finding finding a mentor. So do you share the same values? Do you have your goals? What are your goals? And lastly, is that person accessible? Can we talk to each other?
94.4 Spice FM. We are the adults in the room, and it is getting to 15 minutes to 9 o'clock. Remember, the hashtag is what? Adults in the room. If you use that, we will be able to hear your tweets. Meanwhile, I'm going to play for you something special. A friend of mine told me he loves this song, and I decided I'm going to play it.
Oh yes, there's a special number dedicated to my Rose.
Why did those guys used to do that?
I hear the voice.
Hey, dear mama.
I hear the voice.
Watoto wangu.
This is 94.4 Spice FM. We are the adults in the room, and guess what? We're together with this, resource all the way till 10 o'clock. Are we lucky
Awesome.
or what, man? And we're just going through our topic. What are we talking about, Barbara?
Factors that affect longevity of marriage, and our guest is, as Emanuela says, Dr. Pete Odera. Now, I have a follow-up question.
Before the question, Barbara, just some tweets. Also, there are a bunch of people who are asking if they can send their questions. You can absolutely do that. We are on Twitter at SpiceFMKE. That is our Twitter handle. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram, still on the same handle. If you're on Twitter, we always love to encourage that you remember the hashtag adults in the room, so I can quickly locate your tweet. You can go right ahead.
We're talking about number 2 was sexual
Sure.
intimacy
Mhm.
and compatibility.
Yeah.
And you recommended if you're having such a problem, you'd rather go for therapy.
Right.
If I cannot afford therapy, is there
Right.
another solution?
Yeah.
I can just find out how I can be compatible with my partner?
Right.
Because, hey, you're in it.
Yeah.
It's done.
I think it brings us to our third thing that that I find is critical in encouraging longevity in marriage. That is communication. If you don't talk, if he doesn't tell you what he likes and you don't tell him what you like, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. I say that because the things that you like and the things that he likes are different. And I don't just mean with regard to sex and intimacy. I mean that, the way you cook the fish or don't, there are those people who drown everything.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Drowned potatoes, drowned meat, everything is drowned
It's
in
not their fault. It's
madufu.
their, Era of original entry.
Yes.
Well,
So, and just because he likes you or loves you, he's just saying, anavumilia. After 3.5 years, finally, something breaks because the fight is about something else. But where it started is, and I don't like your food either. And that one touches you somewhere because you say, Yani, for 3.5 years, I've been cooking for you.
with love.
And you've not liked my food. I've never liked your food. I'm out. You say, okay, what happened? It didn't start with the food. It didn't start with whatever it was that you broke the mwiko or you pinched the child. It started with, I hate your cooking. But I've humiliated for 3.5 years, but you never talked about it. So I think because 60 to 70% of our country's population wouldn't be able to afford a therapist.
Yes.
I think there's ways that you can discuss it. And here's an important thing. When we go to the referral hospitals, we don't have a lot of time. I have friends who are now in the medical field. I'm mentoring someone who's gynecologist and obstetrician, and she tells me very interesting things about that whole field. And I say, it's interesting that when somebody's in that field, they can tell you about what, from a physiological perspective, this is what's happening. I'm uncomfortable when. So in talking, you can find that this is the case. And then back to the whole question that Eric was talking about, mentorship. I always find in the space, in the faith space, you'll more often than not find an older gentleman who's willing to share with a young person a little bit from the space of, I just want you to have a better marriage experience than I did.
Yes.
And I remember one of my closest friends, the night before I got married, he walks up to me and says, I have something that I need to tell you. And he says, what? I need to talk to you about the sexual experience. And he'd been married before me, so I said, okay. And then he gave me advice that I cherished for the rest of my life, which I then in turn have given to the people that I mentor. So and that advice went something like this: be gentle. And then he expounded on what it is, because in high school we're told
Pound like I am.
yeah. So I want to say that it's critical for us to give the correct bit of advice, But back to the whole thing, communication. So number 3 thing that I want to talk about is communication. We need to learn how to communicate. So this is how women apologize. Many women apologize in Kenya.
Sorry, boss.
Are you hungry?
That's the apology.
Yeah, that's the apology. Umekula. Meanwhile, you had a fight.
Yes.
2-hour-long fight.
Yes.
And then ukaenda.
Yeah.
You've come back at 11 and you think things are cooled off. It's umekula. That was her way to say, I apologize. But in our present day, we need to understand that let's communicate. Let's learn how to talk. I was upset with what you said. This is what I meant. I didn't mean it like this. Can we talk? We have to learn how to speak each other's language. There's a very interesting book that I came across, and it's an entire movement. It's called the Love Language Movement. I'm sure you guys have heard about it.
Yes.
The 5 Love Languages by
Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman. Fantastic book. You have to learn your love language. And some people ati love. Mi nilikwambia nakulove, that's the end of the story. When I stop loving you, I'll inform you. That's not going to help the person who's a romantic, who is waiting for words and touch. I love you. There's some people, if you don't tell them I love you today, kutakuwa na makasiriko. So if you understand that your man likes to be affirmed and talked to, then talk to him. If you understand that your girl likes gifts, God bless you. Learn how to give gifts, because that's her love language. And I'll tell you how I learned that. So my love language is words and touch. My girl's love language is works of service. So if she comes home and finds she's a tidy, I've not met a tidier person in my life.
Amen to that, because I'm hoping for that for my wife.
She is
Amen.
clean,
Amen.
super clean. She likes a clean kitchen. If you want to tell my wife you love her, come and wash the dishes and pack them away, and then cook a meal. Put something in that. Therefore, she will say, you love me. You really love me. Well, let her to maua, bring chocolates, whatever. Yeah, she likes them. But that other one is her special love
Acts of
language.
service.
If you learn your partner's love language, I guarantee you'll have a much better married life. So learn how to communicate, and not just using words, but also using actions, body language, Pia. You know, if you're sitting somewhere and you say, I love you, Bas. Yeah, you said the words, but I love you, Bas,
And then
means, hey,
Something else.
yeah, that means, okay, I mean, you know, if you like.
You needed to hear it. I've told you.
Yeah. So I think communication is critical. But like I said, I know I'm going quickly, but we have to understand communication. My late father said something to me. And he was a speechwriter for the first vice president. He taught us something. He said, if you cannot express yourself in language, you will die poor. So my brother and I learned how to be articulate speakers. Clear thinkers, but articulate speakers. If you don't know how to communicate, to speak, not to just talk, to speak to your mate, you're going to have problems. So the one person you have to be able to be 100% transparent with and say, this is how I feel, this is what I'm really thinking, is your spouse.
But isn't it like tennis? Like, I send how I feel towards you, then even you send it back, you know, because sometimes it's as if she's not hearing what you're saying, man.
What if she misses?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like,
Yeah.
she shouldn't, like, both of you should be able to listen to what the other person is saying. Then you also listen to what I'm saying. Because if I'm telling you something, then you keep repeating what your opinion is.
Right.
Like, we're not communicating.
Right. So, Emmanuel, think about it like this. So you grew up in a home, just for example, where everything was resolved by makasiriko. So you grew up knowing that if I want my way, if mom wants her way, she shouts. She shouts, and then everybody then aligns to the shouting. So you come and you marry a girl who she and her parents, she was an only child, so they talked to each other and everything was resolved by conversations, gentle conversations. You was makofi, makasiriko, things being thrown. So you come to that space where you're supposed to have conversation. So the first instance, I remember counseling a couple where there was 10 guys in this case. He came from a family of 10 boys. The girl was one girl, a single parent with 2 kids, a girl and a boy. Gentle. And his way of communicating was the beginning. You're not even fighting, it's shouting, because in order to be heard in a family of 10 boys,
You have to.
y'all gotta raise your voice. And this is the point that I'm making. You can't bring your past and your way of communicating, the way your mom used to shout and throw things, to a conversation with a person who doesn't understand throwing. Because the people said, why do you have to shout? Why do you have to shout? I mean, you know, I'm here. You know, this is not a conversation with our neighbors. I'm here, I'm listening to you. And because you're not getting upset and worked up, because, you know, some people, that's the tennis match. I hit it, you hit it back. I hit it, you hit it back even harder. That's not, brings us actually to number 4, conflict resolution. We have to learn how to resolve conflicts. I don't know if are we ready to go with conflict resolution? I don't know if I answered
We are
the question.
ready.
But we are going on a break. I
Yeah.
have a follow-up question before we
Sure.
move to conflict resolution. But shall we go on the break first?
Yeah,
Emmanuel?
we are going on break. This is 94.4 Spice FM.
I
and
like
we
Spice
are
FM.
here.
I like Spice FM. You guys, this is real talk now.
Yes,
Yes.
man, we're
Adult
talking.
conversation.
Yeah.
We are talking until 10 o'clock, and you never know, we might get a text from Tom Japania. Sime to chape paka 11.
You wish.
never
What's up,
know.
Tom?
So, man, you don't have to go anywhere. Remember, the hashtag is adults in the room. So please take advantage of this moment. Pete Odera is actually a resource that needs to be protected because it's full of information. Remember the hashtag adults in the room, and Facebook. Barbara is there to read your tweets. Guess what? It's 9 o'clock. We value you and we love you, everyone who's part of this show. And the family is growing, Barbara. It's growing every single day.
I told you by faith, 7 million strong.
7 million, and someone else actually said 10. Huh?
10 million. Makofi, that's why you clap. Why you?
Where are those
Woo,
claps,
Nani.
Maze? I think, let me tell you, the reason, let me tell you. Huh?
You don't like chalewa like this.
So we are together all the way till 10 o'clock. Remember, the hashtag once again is adults in the room. Eric is scouring through Twitter and just looking for those tweets. And Barbara is all over Facebook and just checking out what you have to say because you are part of this show. Barbara, can you see anything?
Saitoti says, wow, tonight is just wisdom after wisdom.
A big
Wisdom after
shout out
You
that
guys
is
have
Sait-
brought the best. Thank you
Yes,
so
a big
much.
shout
Keep
out
it
to
up.
Saitoti. Yeah, she's a big part of this show. Huh?
Yes, Wilfred Oguna said he's tuned in from Mombasa. The show is great. Thank you, Dr. Pete.
And
Absolutely welcome.
Yeah, man. And we were just the lines are actually open 0719012600. But meanwhile, we were talking about communication, and I didn't feel like we finished it. I think
Eric had a question.
Another question.
Follow-up question.
Follow-up question, yes. So if you're joining us, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for choosing 94.4. We are joined by Dr. Pete Odera, who is a singer, songwriter, and all-round fabulous dad and husband. So if you're wondering, what are they talking about today? One of the normal factors that affect longevity of marriages is what we are discussing. And Dr. Pete, before we went on a break, you're trying to elaborate the importance of communication.
Yes.
And something piqued my interest. When you're talking about meeting somebody who is accustomed to a particular way
Yes,
of resolving conflict, and even how they communicate. I'm reminded of my own self. I grew up in a single mother home,
Right.
and my mother had a whole 5 of us. It's myself, Eric as the firstborn, and 4 girls.
Yes.
So being a Jango woman, she
Right.
believed in nidamu.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. Discipline. And one of the things, I love my mother to death. She passed away about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But one of the things my mother and I our point of departure in many, many times was how she would shout.
Yes.
She's like, Eric! Like to date, if somebody said Eric in CBD, I panic.
Yes.
Like my name is like Radi. Eh? When you say Eric, I'm like, oh my God.
What have
did
I
do?
done?
If it's a female voice, I start
Yeah.
panicking. I'm like, oh my God, what
Right.
did I do? And so when
I'll try that on you.
when I became an adult and I started dating, so I met this very lovely woman, and she was, brought up in a family that they didn't shout at all.
Yes.
So every time we talk, she'd be like, we're just so peaceful and it's so quiet. Like, I love my family. We are so chill. I was like, is she joking? Like, is she joking?
Right.
Who is ever that peaceful?
Right.
Until I went for a graduation and everybody's so chill.
Yeah.
Like, hey, meet mom. Like, hey, Nade, how are you? Meet dad. Hello, how are you? Meet my
Yeah.
brother. Hi, how? I'm like, are you guys like this?
For real?
And then in another relationship, this woman would go off.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll be there in 5. Sorry, there was slight traffic. Oh, traffic. So then my question is,
Yeah.
so
Kaka umeumia.
one person.
He needs counseling.
Yes, counseling.
So you are here in the midst of these turbulence or a qualm in a relationship. So one partner refuses to talk. Man or
Right.
woman refuses to talk for days end. I'm a fura. You know that furaing thing?
Yeah.
So you fura for even, that was another woman I dated who would fura for even 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And she'd say, nikifura niache. So anafura.
Mpaka toboke ndio utaongea.
So the question is it important to find somebody whose character aligns with yours?
Yeah.
Or if now you're married, like my friend Emmanuel here is married, and for instance, he is the one who furas in the marriage. Bibi anajaribu kumwongelesha, anafura. How do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah. So I like the question that you've asked because that's important. We find this often.
Yeah.
We find this often. Communication, a communication gap. So those are 2 interesting situations.
Yes.
I think it's better that you get into a relationship that if you're not yet married to somebody, before you tie the knot with that person, is to understand their communication skill. Where are they on this thing? So I think that's the first thing. But secondly, if you're in a marriage where you have this communication gap, is get help. I always say, man, get help. Help is, and there are people willing to help, whether you go to a counseling center, and there are several that are now inexpensive. In most of the urban centers, you will have counseling spaces, and they're available for a reasonable fee. I say get help, get counseling help, and where you can get it for free, you can get it for free. But be willing to pay something for something that you value. I say, if somebody had cancer in your family, you go to India, you do whatever but how much more for a relationship that you want to preserve? Now, I want to give an interesting scenario. Everybody's carrying baggage. Everybody. It's just that not everybody shows their baggage up front. I had an interesting experience. I wrote about it in one of my books. I was in Minneapolis in the US, and I was bringing musical equipment back to the country. So I had so I show up at the counter with nothing, just my roller bag and a suitcase. And let me tell you, airline guys like those kind of people. Quick check-in, whatever. Hawana makasiri?
Makasiriko.
And then I said, I have some other things. Where are they? And they saw boxes upon boxes that need to be checked. And they just said, hey. Now, some people are like that. They're carrying bags upon bags that you can't quite see until after they've been checked into the marriage airport.
That's when there's that.
That's when now the bag says, and this is over, you pay, and then you're having to pay for the excess baggage. $150 for this, $150 for there are 17 extra bags that you have to pay for that you didn't bargain for. So part of that has to be at the beginning, disclosure. Remember we talked about money?
Yes.
Come to the partnership with full disclosure. I have 2 kids from before. My baby mama, one of them lives in Kakamega, another one lives in Mombasa. I was a bad boy. Please understand that in our relationship going forward, I will at times get some hot phone calls, but don't worry, I'm resolving it.
And my neighbor's house help is pregnant with me.
Yeah. So full
And
disclosure.
I have changed.
Yes.
Secondly, before you marry me, please understand that Barclays is looking for me because I have their 2.4.
I'm still
meter.
working on it.
I'm working on that. And then National Bank, before they go to KCB, also have my 1.7.
Peter, I'm running away.
Yeah. So just know that that's my situation, but I'm working on it. And then my mom is not my real mom. I was adopted, but that's a long story. I'm also working on that one, disclosure, so that we don't discover that you're somebody else. By the way, that's not about me. I'm just saying that is just
we get that.
So, no, because people will be writing you tweets.
Yeah.
You mean Dr. Pete, that's your story? So, listen, disclosure.
Yes.
The earlier you get to that point, and this is in the dating space, you need to know as early as is practically possible. When you know you're committing, say, babe, before hey, I like you and everything. We're going to go the distance, but I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something. This is what it is about me. At night, usually at night, around July there, at night.
Mimi ni mkimbizi.
Yeah. Just so that people know that we have
I
in our
run at
family.
night.
I run at
You
night.
know, Pete, Dr. Pete, that's very important because, like with my wife, 'cause I'm a Luya man,
Yeah.
and my wife comes from Meru.
Yes.
So
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so like the other day there was a funeral at their place.
At their
So,
place,
yes,
which
like
is very different from the funerals
yes,
at
yes.
your place.
So one of the things that happens is me as an in-law, I cannot sleep at their place.
Right.
Which is not a very radical thing like running backwards. It's only
Yes.
that, all right, me, I just want to spend the night, maybe not at your house. I'll just
At a
maybe take a
hotel.
hotel and sleep there.
Right.
But now this became a really
An issue.
big issue.
Right.
Like, it's a funeral, man. Why are you gonna sleep in town? You're supposed to be here holding
Right.
me.
Yeah.
You know. So those are some of the things you're supposed to communicate about
Absolutely.
before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. I'm so glad you brought that up. Cross culture. My brother, my brother married cross culturally, and this is interesting because it was cross culturally in the space where, like Eric said, Nyirimalando, the Kikuyu girls love their Jango men. Jango men like
Love
their
the
Kikuyu girls.
Yeah.
So my brother went that way. But there's things in our culture, both cultures, that we were not brought up with. There's a information generation
Always.
gap thing there and it's at these transition points that we start to learn about them. And so back to the whole question of mentors. Mentors can help you understand, listen, this is where we are in our cultural advance. That I know you guys are trying to be modern, but in this area here, kutakuwa na makasiriko. Tukifika hapa, if you get to Meru, there'll be some problems.
Mm.
There'll be
Because
problems.
they'll be
if-
wondering why you're
Yeah.
going to sleep in a hotel
Yeah.
and you can just sleep here.
yeah.
What is wrong with this
So
boy?
those issues will come up. These are issues that will come up. And the flip side. So I think there's some things you can't really know until you cross that barrier. But there has to be a principle at the beginning. Listen, babe, I'm going to be honest with you. And I'll tell you. So let me give you an example in our marriage. My wife had a boyfriend before who I never met. I knew him, but I had no idea that they had a relationship. So I was at we were at a friend's wedding. I was involved in this wedding. And so we sat down now at the table after the whole pleasantries and ceremony had been done. We're sitting down. Then he came and he said hi to her in a manner likely to suggest
I know
that
you more than
I know. I said, but how do you know this? I didn't know that they knew each other. She says, oh, we used to have a thing. I said, yo, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell me this story? And she said, I forgot. Which tells me that it wasn't that important. But I could have at that time picked and said, oh, so what else are you hiding from me? You're hiding this from me. And it can become an issue that leads to a fissure in the marriage. Reveal everything that you know to be true and honest at that point, and then that you know of. I think that's important because there's some things that you forget. Human memory is interesting.
Yes.
That you can have forgotten. And then people say, no, I forgot. I didn't. How can you forget an ex? Some people actually do.
yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Actually, okay. So we need some therapy in this room. Here's my card.
I'll take it.
So for a case like mine, when you have that difference, like the foundation should be I love you, so let's just forget those minor details.
No, I think sometimes pushing them under the carpet may cause harm because it may not affect you, but the other person sees it as a big deal. I think back to that whole, we're really talking about communication leading into the whole idea of conflict resolution.
Yeah.
How do we resolve conflicts? So I say, let's come to that conversation. I want to say that there are negotiables and then there are non-negotiables. There's some non-negotiables, and those non-negotiables are derived from your values. My non-negotiables are, for example, where, let's just say, we can have no other experience but just me and you. If there's a third party, this thing is going down.
Mm-hmm.
A non-negotiable, for example, can be, now my daughter who's now 20, she's 20 this year, we were speaking at a marriage sort of partnership thing, and I just casually said, when my wife and I have a fight, we have chosen to resolve it. I was offhandedly saying something like this. And I think she was 16 at the time. She came and said, Dad, you mean you guys fight? In other words, in 16 years, she'd never heard me raise my voice at this girl that I lived with. And I thought, that's remarkable. Now, I don't say that to be prideful or immodest in any way. It's just the way we chose to resolve our matters. And so I feel, it's important for us because also we demonstrate to our kids how to do this. So learning how to have negotiables and non-negotiables is critical.
I think we're going to go deeper into that conflict resolution when
Resolving
we come
conflicts.
back. Remember, we're here with Dr. Pete Odera. This is 94.4 Spice FM, the home of authentic conversation. Some Aretha Franklin coming up. We hope you're enjoying the playlist, man. The playlist is fire. I'm in studio with your favorite people, Eric, Barbara, with myself, Emmanuel. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Pete Odera, who's with us now for only, these minutes are flying, 42 minutes only.
We are discussing.
We have gotten a text from Tom Japan.
Badu. But we are discussing factors that affect longevity of marriage. And our special guest, as Emmanuel has rightfully said, is Dr. Pete Odera. Dr. Pete.
Yes.
You were talking about conflict resolution.
Right. Eric was asking me something very interesting about coming to the space of cross-cultural marriages. Sometimes you have and he asked, is it just better to marry somebody from your community? I feel that back to this whole question of, do you have negotiables and non-negotiables? Negotiables are the things that if you lose or you win it's okay. And I gave the example. So there's a funeral or some big deal, I don't know, somebody's born or something in your culture, and you say, in our culture, when somebody's born, you bring a chicken. Now, to the Swiss guy that you're marrying, it means absolutely nothing. You bring a chicken? Yes, we bring a chicken. He want to know why. But look, just to make you and your people happy, I'll bring the chicken. It means nothing to me but to make your people happy. And the line is then drawn where you then say, after this, I'm living for the community and I'm not a part of that community. I don't understand the cultural significance of ABC, but because I want to assimilate, then I'll do this. And notice, this is why when foreigners come to our country and they speak broken Swahili, they say, Muko Poa. And we say, that's our guy. Yeah. What we have said is he has attempted to become part of our culture. We accept them because the Mzungu who calls himself Karaoke, you say, this is our guy. This is our guy because he has chosen to identify with some of your values. And that's important. He will never be our whole, he wasn't born here. It's not your culture. So in that way, I'd say you may never be a Meru, but you can be the best honorary Meru that you possibly can be in respecting and honoring some of the things that are important to them. I don't mean you honor and respect everything, because there's some things that you say, where did this one even come from? Yeah. So find exactly in the place of communication, learning how to compromise.
I like that you've said that. Again, from observation, I'm not yet married. I hope to be.
Not yet. That's important.
Yes.
Not yet.
So a friend of mine is Luo.
Yes.
He was married to a Kikuyu woman, just like your brother.
Yeah.
And as fate would have it, she passed on her 40th birthday.
Oh, my.
Which was very, very sad. So all of us really sad. We drive all the way to Dago. We are like, good Lord, what happened, Nini? Just bereaving and condoling the family. And one mzee stood and said, ile tulikuwa tunataka kusema ni uko kwenu Nyaruguga ndio msichana yetu hataenda. So because of many becauses, we are feeling like, wow, you've gone quite forward tujafika huko, And what I'm thinking that you've said, which is important, is if my non-negotiables align with your non-negotiables, then we can go along. But I think the thing I find, all right, and then now, true. I want my kids to appear some type of way. Or maybe I like your finesse with your jargonness. You're very elaborate and you use big words, and I want that in my genes. But I think oftentimes when the rubber meets the road, it becomes a very, very, very big problem.
Right.
From things like, for instance, now we had to sit with a bunch of guys and wazes and say, can we agree upon somewhere central? Because they wanted this poor guy's wife to be buried behind the house up in Dago. So my friend was saying, culturally, where I come from, I can't be knocking here because you're my in-law to come and maybe even just during remembrance to it's very intrusive and invasive for you guys.
Yes.
Can we agree? And then that mzee said, apart from here, the only other place we can permit is Langata.
Yes.
So I wouldn't emphasize enough the need to align your non-negotiables with this, your potential significant other.
You have spoken like 7 wise Jaluo men right there.
Sibur. Wow. It was just a statement.
Wow.
Yeah, so Dr. Pete, should we go on with the conflict resolution?
Conflict resolution is critical. This, like I said, Emmanuel, is one of the key indicators whether this relationship is going to last or not. So how you fight even before you say, will you marry me? How you fight is critical. So if you can't resolve, if it takes you 6 months to resolve the burnt chapati issue, or your ex called you and it's for 6 months you cannot resolve it, I guarantee you that ex will be back in that relationship. That conversation will be back in that relationship for 6 months when you get married. There's no magic sprinkle and said abracadabra. It's going to be just great after you say your vows. I do. The pictures were great. The wedding was fantastic. But your ex issue has not been resolved. Conflict resolution. How do you fight? And how do you make up? I think that's very, very important. If you learn how to resolve conflicts, understanding what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. There's some non-negotiables. based on your values. Your negotiables should be those things that don't make that much of a difference.
How did because your 16-year-old was asking you guys fight? Like how do you fight? You and your wife.
We disagree privately. We may look at each other a certain type of way, and now they're a little older. I think they can start to spot it.
Now they can. They see the
they
gestures.
say, "Oh, there was some friction there."
So what if you have to say something? Do you?
You
Hold
know
your
something?
tongue.
I'll tell you
To the
something.
red
By the way,
flag.
you don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say something.
Tafakari haya.
We need to learn to hold our tongues.
Sometimes, listen, sometimes it's better to just wait and then say, I will say it at the right time. Now, some people, for 6 months, they hold this thing for 6 months and then they wait for lipukoku.
And unleash it.
Yeah, and then it's used, it's weaponized. That's. I want us to avoid big fallouts, because relationships rise and fall on this area, resolution. So being able to know when to say the right thing at the right time. Sometimes instead of blowing up, it's just a touch and say, can we discuss it later? But there's some people say, no, we have to resolve it here and here. Here is here, Sahi. And I say, but there's no resolution in fighting at the supermarket in front of everybody, because that's really not helping. It's holding some people hostage. So I think that being able to have the discussion, poor conflict resolution skills have killed many good candidates for marriage.
So I'm hogging the questions. Barbara, you're going to ask.
Go ahead.
Like you've said, don't say something. It's not a must you say something.
It's not always necessary to say something.
What if you say that something, but you're not yelling? Yes, you're not. Maybe this person is not comprehending.
Yes.
Like I've touched them. I've looked.
Yes, I
I've
think we all need counseling in this room. This is
Everyone. Tunahitaji Emmanuel Mungu akufundishe kunyamaza.
But she's not.
Yes.
Translating my signs to get the hint.
Yeah.
So should I, if especially if I have kids, maybe we go to a quiet place where we can talk?
I'll tell you something, Emmanuel. This is very important. Remember, I said that how you resolve conflict, you're also teaching your children, because children don't do what you say; they do what they see. So if they learned that the way to resolve problems was to hit and throw, and this is how your kids are going to grow up, learning that we resolve problems by tantrums. And which is why when the 2-3-year-old throws a tantrum in the supermarket, you say to the child, I'm going to count to 3 quietly, and you'll get up. If you don't get up, we will find that you're not going to get the lollipop and you're going to get something else instead. And if you have practiced that privately, then it will never have to occur in the supermarket.
Yes.
I never had to discipline my kids in the supermarket, because they knew I'd have killed you at home. I'm going to kill you at
anywhere.
the supermarket. I gave you life, and I can take it right back.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's
That's
me in
my-
character.
Yeah, that is how I deal with my discipline. Just to ask a question, conflict
Sure, go ahead.
resolution. There are people who are not able. I've been previously married,
Right.
and now I'm divorced, and I had an issue of where.
Which we're finding that we're having to deal with,
Yes,
because our
yes,
parents,
yeah,
they had
yes.
conflicts
And
permanent but never resolved
Solve
it.
it, yes. And of course, in future, I hope maybe I'll, who knows, God knows if I'll get married then. But I have
Hallelujah.
this issue of where sometimes there are people who throw things under the carpet and you're not able to properly
Discuss it. Right.
How do you manage that if one partner is
Yeah.
that, like, I'm not dealing with this, and it's like, it's done.
Yeah.
And one person feels like, hey, we need to talk about
Yeah.
it. So it's like they're different characters
Yeah.
in conflict
So
resolution.
so let me tell you what I get from the ladies more often than not. He doesn't talk to me, especially about money. When he starts to talk about money, you see the jaw tightening and this thing starting to
Yes,
move
it's like,
up and down.
yes, it's like there's some
We
balls.
needed to talk about this thing. Now, let me tell you something about guys. Let me tell you something about girls. The way ladies typically resolve problems is they like to talk into a solution. I don't know if you've ever said, guys, I don't know if you've ever been to a chama meeting. You just happen to open the door and find a chama meeting going on. Everybody's talking at the same time. And you're like, whoa,
You can think
7
it's chaos.
women talking at the same time. What is going on here? But by the time that chama meeting has ended, a marriage has been resolved, a kid has been disciplined, money has been invested, and I mean, big things are going. Big things are going in there.
Yes.
And so you back up and say, but how did you end up with these solutions? And all you were doing when I came is that you were women tend to talk their way into a solutions. We know from philologists and others that research has shown women have 50,000 quota. Men have 10 to 25, half that. Men think their way to a solution. So this is what happens. You say to him, babe, the school called, the school fees is due. What does he immediately do? You don't even have to tell me. What does he do?
He keeps quiet.
Did you hear me? Yeah. Because the way men's brains are wired, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere are not as connected as the women's left and right hemisphere. And so he has to sort of switch off one side in order to determine this thing. Meanwhile, what has happened in his head? I'll borrow from here, I'll put this thing there, and then I'll call the school. Hey, my guy Steve-O had my chums. It was how much? It's half that fees. And then, meanwhile, you're telling him, you didn't hear what I said, and he's trying to say Steve. So he shouts at you and says, Steve, shut up. He says, but I'm not Steve. All you're thinking about is your buddies. And then it comes down, and then he's trying to communicate with you what he was trying to do. His left brain was trying to tell his right brain, solve this problem. If you will just leave it for a little bit, honey, you heard me? Yes, I did. Okay. Can we talk about it tomorrow? Hey, you've given him a good break. Now, some men are serial procrastinators on those matters. And so the women then go and say, I'll find a solution for myself. Silly guy, can't even pay school fees. And then that's what happens. Am I talking?
Yes.
I know there are people on here who are giving me a serious thumbs up.
Yes.
Hear each other. I'd say hear each other and know early conflict resolution styles, so that if your mate is a serial
procrastinator,
ostrich,
under the sun,
because I have names for them. There's the ostrich, the one who buries the head. Then there's the porcupine, who theirs is to throw spines. And then there's the bull in the china shop, whose job is just charge at everything. Charge at everything, charge at everything. China shop, charge. Farm, charge. It's not always wise. You shouldn't just always go. And then there's the giraffe and all these. I use this in my. There's the hedgehog, just curls into a little ball, and just I'm the victim. We have to learn each other's conflict resolution styles. Sometimes you need to talk to the hedgehog and say, "Hey, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not gonna hurt you. Come out of your shell." The tortoise, and that's what I meant. There's a hedgehog, tortoise. Gets into this shell and disappears. Sometimes, if you're a bull or a porcupine, you need to talk to your porcupine partner and say, I'm on your side. The reassurance that I'm on your side is going to be able to say to the other person, hey, listen, I'm on your side. I'm constantly fighting for you. We're a team here. I think that's the important thing to understand. Hey, this is not me versus you. We're a team. If you suffer, I suffer. If you look bad at the office, I look bad. There's that girl whose husband looks bad. If and that, so we look bad together. Akina those guys. That's how that's how people will talk about you. They won't just this is what I mean. Let's remember that we're a team. Yes. Which brings me to the fifth thing, which is friendship. I have found many people ain't friends. They're not friends. Are you friends beyond the romance, beyond this relationship, beyond the kids? You've seen those guys, they're together until the kids grow up. As soon as the kids go to college, that's the end. Now, a lot of my parents, some of my parents' friends, I found they divorced after 25 years of marriage. I said, what? What happened to you? What happened is they had no relationship. The kids were keeping this thing together. I don't know if you've gone to those weddings. And then you hear this old couple, be friends. Sorry, I don't know what they say. Be friends. And you are there lovey-dovey looking at each other. So what do you mean be friends? We love each other. That's not what I mean. I don't mean be in love. I mean be each other's friend. Are you able to be friends? I have a cousin who's been married way longer. He's much older than us. But every time he introduces his wife, who everybody calls Nyasakwa, he introduces her, this is my friend. I say, man, after 30 years of marriage, you still call this woman your friend.
Si mama ya watoto wangu.
Yeah, no. He calls her my friend. And I thought that was significant. I think that's significant. Can we introduce our partner 10, 20 years afterwards as my friend? This is my buddy. And sometimes you lose your friend in the things. You lose your friend in the kids, in, you know, my wife's parents both died since the time that we've been married. My dad died. So there's vicissitudes, there's things that happen, and you can lose somebody. You can lose somebody in those things. But can you go after them? You remember that girl you crossed the bridge for, you were rained on for because you were in love, beat up flowers and you brought it, and she knew that this, but you said, Maze, you're my person. You're my person. I feel your vibe completely.
Wewe ni mtu wangu.
And she disagreed with her father for you.
Yes.
That's your friend. That's what I mean. Let's go back and find that friendship. I think friendship is of critical importance. If you can still be friends, and I like to tell my kids, don't make your mom go crazy. You're going to leave me with a crazy woman. And I do not want a crazy woman for the rest of my life.
You said something powerful. Don't you lose your friendship in the things. That is big.
Yeah.
When you're doing life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do life. So, like, how do you remind yourself consistently to go back, to the friendship? Is it something you should keep reminding yourself? Hey, let's stay friends. You know.
Yeah.
Is that one of the ways?
Yeah, absolutely. But then also accountability. So you went to Nyakwada Girls. You went to live in Nyeri. And nobody knows where you are. Nobody knows where she is. They find out 2.5 later. Oh, akana mtu wake. They wanaishi Nyeri. Wanadu. And you say, hey, what happened to this girl? This is part of the accountability. You have to have people whom you said. So, Yani, I know one pastor who said something one day. He said, hata kuku ikiibiwa inapiga kelele. I think have some kind of accountability in your life. And if you're going to elope, at least tell them, by the way, this is what's happening. I'm eloping on Tuesday, but you can't come get me. You need to have at least one person who you're accountable to. Because if I'm not accountable to someone, then I can do anything. And this is the problem in our generation. Now, people just want to do anything. And it's my dress, my choice, my husband, my choice, my body, my choice. Wait. You live in a world. You live in a world with other people. You can't just go crossing everybody and say, it's my choice to be angry how I want. You live in our world, so you need to temper your behavior. So I think friendship is critical. Some people have a poor bond beyond romance. And some people, the bond breaks over time. Because one day you got bored and you went to a party, you got drunk, and an office party, and the receptionist looked at you 3 times. And then you had something, and then it was nothing because all of you were drunk, and then it spilled out one day and it became a thing. Come back and be willing to say to whoever it is that, you know what, you're more important to me than an office fling. And it's a big deal. I mean, because trust was broken, stuff happens, but be able to go through, and that's what I mean about accountability. Monica pastor Mali say, man, we're having some trouble with this thing. Help us put this thing together. We want to start again. Get counseling. I think this is important. And I found one of the funniest thing that with our generation, certainly my generation of people, is when they want to get married or they're having marital problems, is the day they'll go back to church.
Yes.
I say, let that be part of your life. That spiritual thing, you can be able to go. This is what I say. If you have a pastor somewhere you can go to the pastor and say, Maze, my husband, or Maze, my wife. My wife is beating me, pastor. My wife is beating me. You need to talk to her. It's important to have somebody other than her family who will always side with her, even though she's crazy. Somebody who can be a sober arbiter in your thing. It's part of conflict resolution, but developing friendship.
All right, we're having a powerful conversation right here in studio. We're talking about factors that affect longevity of marriages with Dr. Pete Odera. The hashtag is adults in the room. The phone calls are open, 0719012600. You can still catch him. He's here for the next 20 minutes. Dr. Pete, we can go to the next one, sir.
Number 6.
Number 6. Oh, we're there. Career choices. These are some of the biggest marital breakers. I have stories. I got promoted. We went to this other side of the country, and we were visiting. And then after a while, it got tiring. After 3 months, we couldn't go every weekend for marital visits. He says, "But I trust you. I trust you." Then one day,
And you understand.
yeah, one day you were somewhere, and the curtains, the button was missing, and the curtains were funny, and you couldn't make ugali for yourself. So your colleague came, fixed your button. Fixed the curtain first, made ugali, then said, "Look at your shirt. Bring your shirt." And you took off your shirt, and the next thing you knew, one thing led to another. Because no, it doesn't always happen
I
like
know.
that. But this is sequential.
So,
Something
yes.
happened.
Yes.
Where did that thing begin?
Career choice.
We chose to be away.
Wait.
For the sake of your relationship, you can sacrifice the greater pay, because we've become a generation that values income or money more than relationship.
Like pay comes first.
Yeah, so we have become transactional in our relationships, and we've become materialistic in every sense of the word. Do you value your relationship more than the money? Let's think about it. There's a guy who's been married, he's lived in Kibera 10 years, and he's still married. He loves his wife loves him, but they have nothing. Here you are, you have everything. 2.5 years later, you're saying, "I can't stand this idiot." The idiot that you married.
Your own.
Yeah, your very
Idiot.
own personal idiot.
Yeah.
My
He was-
person.
He
You're
was
a voluptuous idiot.
he
Yeah.
was either an idiot when you married him, or he became an idiot while he was with you. So you idiotified him. Idiotified. Oh, if that's something. That's not a real word. I like to say, hey, look. What's that Luther Vandross song? If you can't be with the one you...
You love
Love
the one you're with.
This is the deck of cards. This is the hand you've been dealt. Work with it. That's one of the hardest lessons, certainly for me, to learn, that this is the girl you have. She's beautiful. She's everything. But sometimes something in the back of your mind says, the grass is green on that side. Oh, that grass, real green. Real green. Super green. Ooh, green.
Luscious.
But what do you have? Because that green could be planted on a sewer.
Yeah, true.
And it's just because it's got manure, it's manurified, but yet in that mess, and you'll be in some serious trouble. I'd say, if God gives you a good girl who you prayed for and he answers your question. By the way, some bad husband can be made good by a great wife.
Yes.
By a great wife. So I think it's important to put that career choices as one. Let me quickly go to the remaining two. Boundaries. Set boundaries early. If you don't know where your boundaries are, your friends are in your house, in your bedroom, in your money, in everything. Let's put some nice boundaries. And those boundaries again come from the space of your values. Because we have sanctity in this marriage. We say that in this area, I won't allow ABC. Now, what's the place of the in-laws? I think this is when in-laws become outlaws. That's a whole topic on its own. That's a show on its own.
Yes.
You can say you're the online in-laws.
Yes, we are the online in-laws.
So,
You've been briefing us.
yeah. So I think it's important to set boundaries, to saying, these are our boundaries. These are our financial boundaries. We will only give every month 3,500 shillings to giving for funerals and whatever. After that 3,500, we have hit the red zone. We will not give any more than that. If we don't have a funeral and we don't give, it rolls over to the next month. That's a boundary.
Yeah, true.
We set a boundary like, listen, if I have an issue with you, before COB, I'll bring it to you. Even if it means we discuss it tomorrow, but I'll bring it to you. You're setting boundaries. What you're doing is, and with various things, and sometimes you can't start off the relationship with boundaries because then it becomes a legalistic relationship. Skiza, these are my safe words. If you ever say nyekundu before me, you will see that nyekundu. Talk to me in front of my children, I'll kill you. Okay, you know that those kind of legalistic, I'm being extreme, but
Yes.
being legalistic is is not going to cut the ice.
Yes.
And that's why it comes honesty and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. These are the boundaries that I have. The last person I killed, this is what they said just before they died.
Some friend of mine used to joke and say, marehemu alikufa hivyo.
94.4 Spice FM. We're here with Dr. Pete Odera.
Awesome.
And, we're having a very good time right here in the studio. We're discussing longevity in marriage, and it's a very great conversation. We'll be back with more conversation after this. You know, I'm going to play some Jeanne, who is one of my favorite men. Hey, Mr. DJ. This song just takes me back, and I hope it does the same to you. Pete has 2 more points, or I think
Just
one and a half.
One more.
You know, so just hang in there, and we're gonna just finish this thing together.
It's something that we shouldn't approach with fear. It's something that we should approach with joy. You know, like Eric said, you know, many people are coming from single parent homes, mostly single mother homes, and so the only paradigm that some men have of a man is absent.
Yes.
Is the absent person. And I think it's important for us then to go out of our way and say, you know what, I'm not equipped to talk or face this marriage thing. And even though I think it's an important thing, I don't yet value and cherish it enough to be willing and able to make that plunge. Then you need to find somebody who you can say, teach me how to value and cherish marriage. And I think that that's the important reason for the generation that has gone before. So don't knock those 73-year-old people who are still working hard to the PCA, in hard, or at least they're coming together. Ask them, how did you guys stay together? I'm thinking about this thing.
Yes.
How did you guys stay together? Ask them real questions like, how did you resolve conflict? The day you discovered that she looked at another guy, did you melt down? What did you do? These are important questions. And when you find the kind of person who can teach you how to value and cherish marriage beyond ceremony and pictures. Because these days, nika ceremony na mapicha. And that's all you have after that. Cherish marriage. There's beauty in having a team. There's beauty in being able to raise a family together. When people, and what's the word I'm looking for? Invariably, I have found that people come to me and say, you have such a beautiful family. You have such a beautiful, anything beautiful, whether it's a well-developed body, a great performing team, or a fantastic company, takes time and effort to build.
Yes.
So we need to value it, and if we don't put work into it, we'll never value it. We'll never cherish it if it's not precious to you.
Anything valuable takes time and effort to build.
Yeah.
Anything valuable takes time and effort to build.
Yeah, that is deep, man. I don't know if we're gonna get that phone call. If you wanna have the last word, now is the time. 0719012600. I have my eye on the deck, and if it lights up, I'm gonna pick up your phone call, man. Pete, do we have one more?
Well, we covered all 8 of them.
We've covered all
8, yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, no,
All
it's,
8.
it's amazing.
I did a whole marriage seminar in 2 hours.
You know, this is, I may digress a bit. Is there a phone call?
Let's pick up this phone call.
Okay.
Spice FM, hello? Hello? Spice FM, hello? Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, man, it's...
there she is.
Yeah, there she is, but it's a bit faint. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, man, she's too far, man. Please get to a place with network. Eric, you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to say, Dr. Peter, you know, I try to bother myself with world trends and reading when I can.
Yeah.
How do you keep so fresh? By fresh, I mean physically, young looking, and also very physically astute with what's happening. I mean, your lingua is very current, very rich, very diverse. How do you do that? Because if you meet a lot of 50-year-olds, they will start, they are mixing their she's and he's. See, it's my daughter who has it at... They start talking like they're just straight from Mogwenya. You know, so how do you do that? How is it intentional or just?
I have to be intentional about it. I told you my dad was a speechwriter. He did not give us a break. He said, if you're going to say purpose, say purpose, not papas. And so he was very intentional about it. And then, you know, we got into the culture of reading. I watch a lot of documentaries and I keep abreast. But then I hang around young people. Young people. One of my mentors is a lady who's now in her late 80s. I think she's early 90s, late 80s. And she said something when I was a teenager when she met me. She was the first lady to ever give me an opportunity to go on television. I think I was 17 or 18. And she took a chance on this teenager to do a song on national TV I had not rehearsed. But there I was on VOK. And I used to hang out with her and she'd say, you people, she was African American, you people keep me young. And so I learned that if you hang around young people, you'll stay young because they'll keep you on your toes. And then, you know, physically, I try and work out every now and again. I'm not as I played for Kenya Harlequins, you know, by the way.
Yes.
I did, and we won against. I like to tell Edward Rombo, he was the winger, the opposite from me, and we beat them at that particular Impala floodlights. I rub his face in it. I know he's probably listening. I rub his face. We beat y'all. But yeah, I used to be a sportsman when I was younger. But then now, when I got involved in what I was doing, time. So I try and make time for, and you know, if you can join a gym, if you're disciplined enough to do it by yourself at home, you know, walk at least 2-3 times a week, and it's gonna do you good.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Man, Dr. Pete, we just want to say thank you. I feel like time has just flown. I feel like you've been here for 1 minute. Like I feel like we're just beginning to get into it,
Time
man.
flies when you're having fun.
Thank you so much for making the time and you know, just creating out of your schedule some moment for us here. And I pray that you're gonna be back, man.
I will be. Just give me a call. I'll be ready. My wife says she just loves you guys. You guys have been made a day, and like I've been telling you, she's been texting me while.
Thank you so much. Pass our regards.
Thank you so much. If someone wants to reach out, where do they find you?
I'm on all platforms. I'm on Instagram. I'm on IG.
Twitter?
Twitter. Yeah, not so much Twitter because KOT, bitter people. We need to talk Kenya.
we need to talk KOT.
I'm on Facebook, Peter there at Facebook. I'm on Instagram and the other platforms. You can find me there.
All right.
I'm not hard to find.
Make sure you reach out. What's happening tomorrow morning, Eric?
6 to 10 a.m. and do call Eric Latif and Mr. C.T. Muga. He hates doctor, but he's a professor. You know? So join them. It's a blast.
3 to 7, we have the Honey Voice that is the Spiced Rap, and 7 to 10, of course, the Adults in the Room with Eric Omondi, Emmanuel Kisiangani, and of course the Duchess of Ikolomani. Thank you very much for producer and to everyone who has tuned in. God bless you. We love you and good night.
Music all night long. You don't have to touch that dial.